Texas Democrat Joaquin Castro. He's a twin brother of 2020 Democrat candidate Julian Castro. Joaquin is doubling down today after getting criticized for naming and shaming on Twitter 44 donors to President Trump. They include Castro's own constituents in San Antonio. They even include a donor to Joaquin Castro. But here's Joaquin Castro trying to defend his bullying of these donors on Twitter. Watch.
When you make a political contribution, especially to a federal candidate, that's a public record. And so that graphic lists people's names, and many of them are business owners, so they actually own those companies. Their money is being taken and used to fuel these hateful ads. And it has put millions of people in this country in fear. There are people right now that are living in fear. And I don't think the president understands that.
Okay, let's bring Kristin Tate, a conservative columnist. What is your take on Castro exposing just regular citizens whose only sin was displeasing him? Should he be held accountable if any harm comes to them?
Well, this is disgusting. Targeting everyday Americans for their political beliefs is dangerous and could put lives at risk. You know, Liz, it reminds me of when Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. It's clear now that leftists just use these kind of sound bites as a cudgel to silence their political foes, but then they have no problem turning around and targeting everyday Americans with harassment and threats. Anyone who expresses support for Donald Trump today is making themselves vulnerable to being heckled, having their property vandalized, being boycotted, or even being physically assaulted by groups like Antifa. Even my own brother had his car vandalized a while back just because it had a Trump bumper sticker on it. So, you know, I think a lot of Trump supporters, they see this kind of stuff and they decide that it is not worth being shamed or worse. So they stay silent about their political beliefs, and then on voting day, they go into those polls and they pull the lever for Republicans. And this is one of the reasons that Donald Trump's support is so stealthy and hard for pollsters to kind of measure. This is a reason why we don't have accurate polling anymore, because Trump supporters aren't even comfortable being open about their political views.
You know, critics are saying of Joaquin Castro that he failed his own public office and that he should take the tweet down and apologize. Because here's the thing, politicians, Kristin, and you know this, they're supposed to just debate and talk to those who disagree. I mean, does Joaquin Castro know where any of these 44 stand? Maybe they just support Trump's policies on the economy, on taxes or the jobless rate. It's outrageous, critics are saying, that he's going after his own constituents and naming and shaming them.
Oh, it's shameful. Just because you support Donald Trump and you don't trust Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden to run the economy doesn't make you a racist or a white supremacist. And to suggest otherwise is intellectually dishonest and downright absurd. You asked at the beginning if Castro will be held accountable for this. Certainly not by the mainstream media, but I have to think, Liz, that this kind of behavior may blow up in the Democrats' face ahead of 2020, because there are lots of moderates and independents in this country who may not love Donald Trump, but they're watching this extreme behavior by Castro and others, and it terrifies them. And the other way this could backfire on Democrats is that it could just mobilize Trump supporters even more, who are completely fed up by being targeted.
To your point, we know that Republican House Minority Whip Steve Scalise is saying this is really dangerous. Lives are at stake. I know this firsthand. Remember, he was seriously wounded when a gunman opened fire at a Republican practice. Even a USA Today reporter, David Mascio, saying this is a dangerous escalation to me. Here's the fallout, Kristin, that no one's covering. Having covered the IRS and covered political audits of enemies of presidents, I know this for a fact, that when the Obama campaign did this same thing to Mitt Romney, 8 donors to Mitt Romney, and Wall Street Journal writer Kimberly Strassel pointed this out. 8 of those donors, the Obama campaign publicly exposed them for donating to Mitt Romney. One of them got audited by the IRS, and the Labor Department went after one of Mitt Romney's donors. What's your reaction to this? The fallout's not over from Joaquin Castro doing this. Your take?
No, it's completely unfair. I'm glad to see some people in the media calling him out. But, you know, Liz, I just have to think if this were the opposite and a Republican had done this, that the fallout would be much more severe and this story would be in the news for a lot longer than it will be. But, you know, kudos to those journalists who are being honest and calling him out, because this is a really dangerous path to go down. I mean, targeting everyday Americans for supporting a certain candidate and then shaming them, it does put lives at risk, and it's scary.
Kristin Tate, thank you so much for joining us. We'll
Thank
have
you, Liz.
more on this story tomorrow with